Scott, I'm Matt Weiner. Brendan Haywood with us as well. Glad you could be with us for this edition of Game Time Live presented by State Farm. That game is not quite over. It might as well be. No Joel Embiid out with a shoulder injury. For all intents and purposes, yes. Ben Simmons still out as well for Philadelphia. They're about to drop their fourth straight. Remember, this was a Philly team that was leading the East just a few days ago. But not surprisingly, like we've seen with the Lakers, they're not as good with their two best players on the sideline.
No, they're not as good, and things don't flow as well on the offensive end. Even defensively, without Ben Simmons on the floor, we see that, him being the front runner for possibly Defensive Player of the Year now, missing games. But luckily for them, B-Wood, that the Brooklyn Nets are banged up as well. So these losses, along with Brooklyn losing games, is not really hurting them in the win-loss column. But, Matt, big picture, continuity, chemistry, flow. Yeah. You want to be as healthy possible to finish up these last, 10, 12, 13 games.
Absolutely. Brendan, is this an issue for you for Philadelphia? Is this just a stretch where you deal with what's on the schedule and who's available for you?
It is an issue because 3D mentioned about the win-loss column, but if you pay attention to the win-loss column, Philly's no longer number one in the Eastern Conference. The Brooklyn Nets were able to jump them, and now they're going to get even a little bit more of a cushion with Philly losing today. The number one seed and the number two seed is very, very important because when you talk about playoff seeding, if you're the number one seed, the 8th seed isn't nearly as scary as the 7th seed. So if you're the 2 seed and you get matched up with, let's say, a team like Miami or a team like the Boston Celtics, that's a really, really, really tough first round. It is imperative that Philly gets back on the winning track. They need Embiid back, they need Simmons back, and they need to stack these wins. You see it right there. If you're the Brooklyn Nets, you want to stay number one because you're banged up right now. So you don't want your first round to be a team like the Heat that can push you. Maybe not beat you, but push a series to 6 or 7. You want to be right in that sweet spot where you get to take on a team like the Hornets. That's where you want to be. So this race for number one is very, very, very important between Philly and Brooklyn.
Sounded like B took a little poke at the hometown Hornets there.
Yeah, he did.
It sounded like to me.
Sitting there in I would never do that. I wouldn't be able to show my face around the city. They love you, Charlotte.
Little jab.
Little body blow.
Here's the really interesting thing about the seedings and the way it works. For the first time in league history, the 1 seed and the 2 seed won't know who they're playing at the end of the season because of this play-in situation. You tend to see more jockeying in the 2 through 4 area when it comes to trying to pick your opponent at the end of the season. Less so with the 1 seed. Everybody would prefer to be the 1 seed generally, but it is interesting now that you don't know who you're going to play. And for those who are still catching up on this whole play-in situation, if you land 7 through 10 in either conference, you're playing an extra game to get into the postseason. The 10 seed and the 9 seed will play each other. The winner of that game will advance to play the loser of the 7-8 seed game. That winner is the 8th seed. The winner of the 7-8 seed game is the 7th seed in either conference.
I like it.
Brendan's got that.
You got that, Brendan?
That's confusing.
It's confusing, but at first, guys, I wasn't crazy about it, but I actually like it now. There's so many years that 6, 7, 8, well, do we want to make the playoffs? Do we want to tank? Do we want to get in the draft? Do we want to wait? So I think now you see teams, really trying to play to be a part of it. Now, some teams say, well, I'm going to be a part of the playing game to play the number 1 seed. Well, yes, I'd rather do that versus at the end of the season not play for anything and get ready for the summer, get ready for next year.
Yeah, the question is lottery, no lottery. That's part of it. I don't know that I like this long term, and I've heard particularly coaches criticize it because you're devaluing the regular season. If you play well enough to be the 7th team in your respective conference, and then let's say you have an injury, a short-term injury for just that game or 2, you could wind up out of the postseason despite racking up enough wins, Brendan, to be 7th, the 7th best team in your conference.
I agree with you, Matt. I see what the NBA is trying to do. They're trying to add that NCAA flair. They're trying to add that type of spice to it. But listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm that type of person. And if I played well enough to be the 7th or the 8th seed, don't tell me that I got to play my way in. I got to fight for my supper. No. I did what I was supposed to do in the regular season. The 10th seed, well, they're the 10th seed for a reason. If they wanted my spot, they should have done better.
You're a big guy. I can't imagine anyone ever fought you for supper.
Hey, man, times get hard, man. People do what they got to do.
That seems like a losing battle to me.
At the end of the day, man, you can't let somebody get your spot, man. Hey, 3D, you see what was it? 5 Heartbeats of the Temptation? You want my spot, Flash? You can't have it. You can't have it because you ain't got it. Because in this case, you didn't earn it.
All right, how about this Milwaukee team? They're going to be 37-22 when this wraps up against the 76ers now. It's been the question all season long. Did they make enough changes in the offseason? Did they tweak enough and then add enough with P.J. Tucker, for instance, coming in to advance a little further than they had the last couple of years and reach the promise of a potential NBA Finals?
Well, I think the bigger move was with Drew Holiday, in my opinion. I think P.J. Tucker, no disrespect to you, P.J., but late game situations, we know Drew Holiday can put the ball in his hands. He's going to make a true difference. And I think that's what they were missing the last 2 years, that, yes, Giannis the MVP, provenly so. Chris Middleton's been a nice, part two. But who was that guy to help them really get over the hump? And I think that's why they went out and got Drew Holiday. They gave him the contract extension. So I'm waiting to see, is he the piece, along with all these other guys growing up and getting better with 1 year of experience under their belt.
All right, it now is a final in Milwaukee, 132-90 for all Bucks without Embiid, without Ben Simmons on the floor. Milwaukee shot just under 52% and knocked down 18 threes on 40 attempts. Good news, well, lots of good news for Milwaukee. Among the good news is that Giannis, Brandon, only had to play 24 minutes to get his 24, 14, and 7.
That's super efficiency right there. And Giannis is just doing what he does. He was getting downhill, getting down the lane. I mean, Danny Green versus Giannis, that's an obvious mismatch. You see Giannis with the nice Euro step. Right here, he gets out in transition. He was Defensive Player of the Year last year for a reason, because he plays on both ends. And he just gives you that effort. And you see him right here roll to the basket. And there was nobody on that back end that could do anything to stop him, especially with Embiid gone and Ben Simmons gone. Those two guys are key if Philly's going to slow down Giannis next time they play him. They didn't have either guy tonight, and Giannis went off. I'm impressed more with the 14 rebounds in that amount of time.
Yeah.
3D, what you see?
No, yeah, you hit around the head. The fact that he can get in there and mix things up. I like the 7 assists because he realized he will get double teamed. And Matt, you heard Coach saying build that wall for Giannis.
Yeah.
Well, the way you get around that wall is finding people to knock down 3-point shots. Like you mentioned, they made 18 threes tonight. But we're all waiting. Will this translate to get out of that second round and get into the Eastern Conference Finals?
He had a double-double at halftime. So I guess if you think about the new additions, and I met Drew Holiday in the offseason, that was the big one, but they also added P.J. Tucker. They added Bobby Portis back in the offseason. Jeff Teague is now coming off their bench as well. Who knows how many minutes he gets in a playoff game. But when you look at this iteration of the Bucks, does this look like a better version than the one we've seen fall short the last couple of years?
So far, man, I say it again, so far the short test we've seen, yes, it looks better. But now we question Bud now. Bud, you have more things to work with. Can you tinker what you've shown us the last 2 years where your offense is really, really good? But now when the playoffs get here, you don't tweak anything.
Is there a plan B?
It has
if
to be
there is
a plan
B, what is that?
Putting the ball in Drew Holiday's hands.
Okay.
But what is that offense? Is it a lot of pick and roll? Is it misdirection?
Right.
Is it him on the weak side of the floor with a live dribble? Those are the things that coaching staff has to figure out. How do I make Drew Holiday more effective? Because when Chris Middleton had the ball, we know what he can do. Giannis, they continue to build that wall, and he's not finding three-point shooters. So the pressure, so to speak, falls back on Drew Holiday, in my opinion.
And Brendan, I actually think, and they've done it a little bit this season, you might see the ball more in Middleton's hands than in previous playoffs. So it's not so predictable where it's just Giannis, Giannis, every possession down the floor.
Yeah, I think coming down the stretch, a lot of people are talking about Drew Holiday, but it might be in Chris Middleton's hands more, and I've seen them do that a lot more this year, is put the ball in Chris Middleton's hands when it's winning time. He's probably the best shooter on that team. They're using him a lot in the mid pick and roll, and that's what the NBA game is all about right now. As much as we love Giannis, the last 5 minutes of a ball game, he's a finisher, not a facilitator. So I like what Chris Middleton brings to the table. To answer your question, Matt, I do think this is a better version of last year's team, because as much as I respect Eric Bledsoe, but I think that Drew Holiday is a better basketball player. He's a better three-point shooter, shoots 39% from three. And he's a better defender as well. So he's a better 3-and-D guy. He's going to mix him better with Giannis. That makes them better. Bobby Portis was a key addition that not a lot of people are talking about. He's shooting the three awfully good as well.
The other thing about Middleton, who, by the way, I'm talking up Middleton. He went 0 of 6 today in a game they won by 1 million. But the other thing about Middleton, we've seen a million times. As much as the NBA loves threes right now, Coaches are pretty happy with a guy who can create his own shot in the mid-range late in a game. And Chris Middleton is one of the great mid-range shooters in the entire league, who definitely can create for himself if you need a bucket down the stretch. All right, Bucks win it big this afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the Knicks and Raptors.
Thank you for taking care of your body. And upstairs, I don't know what y'all doing this to Julius Randle, calling him Dr. J 2.0, but we're going to let y'all slide on that one.
You know what? I'm just going to say that's wrong.
Yeah, y'all upstairs, y'all must be Knicks fans. I'm going to let y'all slide and let you know that me and Matt and Brendan did not do that.
We had nothing to do with it.
I don't know who made this graphic. Hey, much love to Julius Randle. You are doing your thing. But hey, let's pump the brake on Dr. J. Be easy, man. Be easy,
man, don't do that to the young man like that.
There's only one doctor.
There's only one ever.
I'm gonna lobby that we retire that. From now on.
Yes.
R.J. Barrett, Brendan, has been a nice story for the Knicks as well, and maybe he's another one of those players who's flourishing because of the freedom that it's hard to even say this in a sense. The freedom that Tom is allowing him in the offense.
Yeah, Tom has definitely learned some new tricks as 3D talked about, and RJ is definitely one of the beneficiaries of it. You see him right there shooting the ball better than he did as a rookie. That is key for him because last year teams were kind of letting him shoot and he was trying to find his way. We know he's a bully when he goes left. You see him Euro stepping left and then going back right. But RJ Barrett has just continued to work, develop, get better. And the thing I like about RJ Barrett is that he plays hungry. When you see him out there, him and Julius Randle, they both play hungry. They try to take the food off your plate. And those are guys that Tom Thibodeau can get behind because he wants dogs. He wants guys that are going to go out there and fight for every inch on that basketball court. And he has that with R.J. Barrett and Julius Randle.
Here you see a look at the standings right now. The Knicks, who have that 9-game win streak, are now a half game up on the Atlanta Hawks, who won here in Atlanta last night against Miami despite their absences. So you're looking at a first-round series potentially with the Knicks and the Hawks, and that would be an interesting one for a couple teams that haven't been in the postseason the last couple of years.
Yeah, it would definitely be an interesting matchup. And if we're talking about teams doing well, let's give the Hawks some love too. Atlanta's been playing incredible since Nate McMillan has taken over. I mean, he has his team playing better defensively. They had a big-time win the other night against the Heat without Trae Young. So the Atlanta Hawks are playing great as well. But, man, I tell you what, 3D, if the Hawks took on the Knicks, my money will be on the Knicks right now because defense travels, and the Knicks are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. On nights where you're not hitting shots, can you get stops? The answer in New York is yes.
Yeah, that's interesting, man, because the way Tibbs has built his foundation is the defense, and I think I would agree with Wood on that. And offensively now, like you said, man, it's hard to say that a Tibbs team is flourishing and playing loose on the offensive end, but I think that's the other added of, hey, guys, if I let you flow and play the way you want to offensively, you got to give me the extra effort on defense. That's why they're in the 4th seed consistently all season long, man. They've been solid all season.
No, it's been a great story in New York, and you can just hear the fans so excited about their Knickerbockers.
There you go,
Professor
man.
Matt.
There it is, man. Way to break it down for him, Matt.
It's easy to understand. It's not that hard to explain.
Right.
If you understand, you understand. It takes a while to lay it out, though, for everybody.
Right. Good stuff. There we go.
My next
You got to break it down for me again in the break.
It's a good-looking suit. I may have to go to the
I like that.
old-school double-breasted 1940s look. That's Karis LeVert. Pistons and Pacers coming up at about 7 Eastern time or so. We'll hear from Karis about his new life in Indiana when we come back. Also ahead, talk Lakers and the return of Anthony Davis. Back in the lineup on Thursday for LA after missing 30 games. What it means to the Lakers and when they'll get fully healthy moving forward.